So yeah, we also have instructions at the reception area as well. I don't know if that's the same thing, but yes. So if you were looking for closed caption, there should be there too. Okay.
Yeah, please let me know if you have any questions on the closed caption. So this is Anna Makarova, and I would just, for the I would like to say that I'm white with brown long hair and a pink headband, also light blazer, light yellow blazer. And I want to say thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. I wanted to set up a room really quickly. So it's an inclusive product week, and today is a Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So I want our conversation to be inclusive. So in terms of to everybody to participate, and your opinion matters, and you can share it in the chat. Any suggestion, advice, or your opinion in general. So let's just have a conversation. And I want all of you to participate. We can brainstorm together and just build a more inclusive community and just be a community together. And for the captions, you can find description in the reception area. And if you have questions, please let me know. And just a little bit about myself. So my name is Anna Makarova, and I'm a UX researcher and design strategist. I have a passion for building sustainable, inclusive, and accessible UX, and also world experience. You probably ask me, why am I here? And many reasons, honestly. First of all, I'm a woman, and I'm an immigrant woman myself. So our talk is about future of inclusion and accessibility in UX and life, with an emphasis on inclusive and inclusive circumstances. So inclusive circumstances is a definition that I came up with. So I invented it basically, and we will talk about it a little later. And just to explain my reasons why I'm here. So in my home country, in St. Petersburg, Russia, I was very active human rights advocate. And I was supporting people with different abilities. I was supporting mothers and women, immigrants, LGBTQ, and underprivileged students. With all that experience, I'm definitely feeling that I can make a difference in terms of make the community more inclusive. And to while moving to the US, I wish to continue to engage in this subject, as well as I want to talk a little bit about my grandparents who lost their vision very early in the age, and because of the World War II events. So after many of the career transitions I had, and like having my master's degree, and just I feel it's not enough. I'm not contributing much. I don't feel any contribution. So, and with all my experience in human rights advocacy and career changes, I found the human interaction design and user experience research the area where I can actually do something. I can contribute. So that's why I'm here. And just to talk about coming back to inclusive circumstances a little bit, especially now in the new normal, when the whole world went digital, it can be very challenging for some people. Like on a human level, I still just want to talk to my grandparents, right? I do talk to them on the phone, but they have nothing about technology. They don't know how to use smartphone. They don't know how to use tablet or computer. They over 80 years old. But they're still full of energy. They taking dance classes, painting classes, all sort of singing, performing, and they wanted to go back to workforce. They want to use their energy, but no one wants to hire them because they're over 80 years old and they partially blind. So talking about that, I started the user research study on like.
Do you mind if I interrupt you really quick? Are you supposed to be sharing slides or anything?
No, we're not sharing slides. We're having the conversation, and I will share some projects and.
Okay. Yeah, totally no worries. I just wanted to make sure, in case you were trying
Yeah.
to share slides, that
No,
it wasn't
I
quite
will
there.
share screen later with some
Okay.
other stuff. Thank you.
Excellent. Sorry, continue.
No problem. Yeah. So with all that being said, I'm talking about the research for seniors and how might we contribute and bring things together and help learn and use technology, right, for the seniors, and especially in Russia as well. So if have you seen the movie The Mole Agent? It's a new documentary. It was by Argentinian director. It was Oscar nominated when they were hiring a senior over the age of 90 and as like a secret agent for retirement home. And when they do the interview, they were asking them to use like a smartphone, and it's basically how my grandparents would look like, and even worse because they're partially blind. So definitely watch the movie. It's very heartwarming and interesting. But with all that being said, we have a lot to discuss. But right now, I want to introduce my guest speaker, Christopher Núñez. And I want to show first, before he will introduce himself, I would like to show his video, which was done by New York City Mayor's Office for Immigrant Inheritance Week. So I'll show you. Immigrant Heritage Week, sorry. I'm like always confused. Let me know if you have any problems with seeing the screen.
I was born and raised in this beautiful and tiny country in Central America, Costa Rica, and I didn't feel a lot of support from my country when it comes to the foundations of my work. I am queer. I am also disabled. I'm partially blind. And I am a choreographer, performance artist, dancer, and I was undocumented in the US for 4 years. That's the person that I am. So I just remember going to my lawyer's office, and my lawyer said, your political asylum has been declined. So I think it's time for you to pack your stuff and go back home. And I said, this is home. I can't go back to my country. This is home. I just remember the following day going into the ocean, and I just stay on the beach all day in the water, just really afraid I was going to be sent back. And I just decided water to be safe, understanding that I was going to live probably the hardest time in my life. So I needed to feel the water, and I needed to feel protected, because I remember that was that moment when I realized that the decision that I made was a powerful decision. It was going to have consequences, and I needed to work really hard to find a solution, not only for me, but also for my family and friends that I haven't seen in so many years at that point. Coming to New York was really beautiful, and it was really opening, because I went to see performances, and I met people in the dance community, people working with disabilities, people of color, minorities working together. And New York was definitely the place to be me and to do the work that I wanted to do. And dance has been a way for me to survive, undocumented in the US, because I feel all these institutions in the dance community really protected me and provided me with opportunities to perform even when I was undocumented. It saved my life, and it helped me survive through the many struggles in my life. And now that I am documented, it's a privilege, it's a huge opportunity, but it's also a responsibility. Now, as an activist, as a performer, I feel this commitment to speak about my story and about the people that surrounded me and helped me.
Okay, Christopher, it's such a great video. Thank you for sharing this. And could you please introduce yourself and you can unmute?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for the lovely presentation and taking the time to share this beautiful video that we did just a few days before the pandemic hit the US. So there is an apocalyptic feeling to this video because it's right before New York City was shut down and, you know, our lives completely changed. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Christopher Núñez. I am a Latino artist. I identify as visually impaired. I am a choreographer. I am a visual artist as well. I do installations. And I work as an accessibility consultant for nonprofits in New York City, and also as a coordinator for diversity and inclusion initiatives, also in New York City. I am an immigrant. I came to the US back in 2014. And as some of you saw in the video, I was undocumented, formally undocumented for 4 years before I finally got my green card back in 2018. So during this time that I was undocumented, I did a lot of activism for the intersections between disability and immigration status, especially for Black, Indigenous communities of color. And it is basically the line of my work. I work for BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous people of color, that also identify as queer, gender nonconforming, gender non-binary, and also identify as disabled. So there is a lot of intersectionality in the work that I do as an artist and also as an arts administrator. And I'm very happy to be here tonight and share this evening with the lovely Anna, who has been very generous in this process. And I am beyond excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Christopher. We actually met through the Pan America, is a writing workshop for immigrants. So it's great time. So I just to continue discussing our topic, I would like to also talk about like why are we here, right? So we're here because we have this interest in doing work and making the difference. And as Christopher said, also it's a thought about how people think of disabled people sometimes as disabled people, right? But there is an intersection of identities, as also Christopher mentioned, right? So what happens when a disabled person or people who also like immigrants themselves, and what is the process of the adjustment or cultural assimilation process for disabled people that come to the US, or process for women immigrants with like short-term disabilities such as pregnancy come to the US? And like a quick question for Christopher as well, because during pandemic so much changed, right? And talking about the inclusive circumstances, it's people who need accessibility intervention for like a period of time, like not always. So, and it's based on situation. It's maybe like emergency situation or person looking to go back to work, like as my grandparents, or maybe a pandemic situation, right? Which you don't know for how long it's going to happen. So I just want to ask a question to you, Christopher, if how the pandemic like affect your life as a choreographer, as a visually impaired choreographer, and as an artist, like what happened? Can you tell me more a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for that question. That is a really interesting question. And I also wanted to take a moment because I forget myself. And this is where I tell people to be gentle to yourselves, because accessibility really comes from the heart, right? Accessibility is a human condition. So we humans need to really come from a place of honest curiosity and generosity. And we make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. But I wanted to say that for accessibility purposes, if there is anyone that in the audience that is blind or visually impaired, I'm going to take a moment to describe myself. I am 6 feet tall. I am a Latino guy. I have a beard. I shave my head. I'm wearing beautiful rings. One is my engagement ring, and the other one is a beautiful ring present by my husband. I'm wearing a black shirt and this beautiful Navajo from the indigenous community, Navajo necklace made of turquoise, which is a green, bluish color. And I'm also acknowledging that I am in a stolen land. So I'm talking to you all from Lenape land that is currently known as Brooklyn, New York. And now for your question, Anna, the pandemic means so many things, and it's been such a challenging time for humans. But something that's been very positive about the pandemic, we realize as a community, as a disability community, of the many possibilities that technology can offer to disabled people, particularly disabled people that want to join the workforce, people that want to work from home because they have a physical disability, maybe they don't have the resources to travel because transportation is particularly expensive for people that identify as disabled. And we know that not every space, especially in the US, is accessible, right? Physical spaces. And so it is, it's been really interesting to see that organizations, nonprofits, companies are transforming the way that we work. And so this was because of the pandemic, but it was very beneficial for the disability community because we were able to work from home. Finally, something that we wanted to do, we were able to do it. And that's one of the little, maybe few positive aspects of the pandemic. Now, when you talk about intersectional oppression, something that we need to talk about is financial status, class, education, literacy, technological access to technology, for example. And we all take for granted that everybody has a computer, right? And not everybody has a computer. Some people don't have the financial means to get a computer. And not every single computer is accessible to people. Some computers don't have assistive technology included. So going through the process of, for example, if you're a blind person and you need to get a screen reader in your computer, it's not only getting the computer, it's to pay for the programs, it's to pay for the software, it's to pay for the assistive, is the time that it takes to learn how to use it. If you are an immigrant, for example, and you are listening to a screen reader talking to you so fast in English, it's not really helpful either. So we need to consider all of these factors when we talk about intersectional oppression, right? And how being disabled, on top of being an immigrant, on top of being a woman, for example, on top of being transgender, all of these intersections, all of these layers contribute for people to have a very difficult experience when it comes to work. And the pandemic provided many tools for disabled people to work. So, for example, nobody knew anything about the closed captions before the pandemic. It was like, you know, something that only disabled people know about, or some people that are non-disabled. Nobody knew about American Sign Language, and now you see American Sign Language everywhere. So we realized that implementing accessibility tools was not only for disabled people, but non-disabled people can actually benefit from these tools.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you can be in a meeting, you can mute yourself, you can mute everybody, and you can just pay attention to the closed captioning. You can just read the closed captions, right? Like we created these interactions now that really came from disabled people finding solutions to become, you know, to make the world a more inclusive space. So the pandemic, I know that we have mixed emotions about the pandemic, but I'm very optimistic about the positive changes in the work culture, at least in the US, in terms of accessibility. Now I see people working from home, improving their experiences, their professional experiences, feeling more included. Basically, the world is just changing in a very interesting way.
Yes, that's true. I agree 100%. And talking about all that, I feel it's also a part of of sustainability, right? Sustainability, it's not only about the environment. It's about addressing the challenges that can pertain of the our community challenges, of our society challenges, right? It can be health, safety, equality, diversity, access to opportunities, and obviously environment. And to be inclusive and accessible, it's a part of sustainability as well. And
Yeah.
because the interesting topic you talking about, and talking back about the inclusive circumstances, right? That definition that I've been talking from the beginning, it's for a particular situation, right? As you're describing pandemic and how much more things became accessible. So
Mm,
as Dr. Mariapis said, it takes like a catastrophe to make people to help people, right? And I just want to talk about safety now. Safety. So as inclusive circumstances, let's imagine a safety subject. For example, what if we can imagine if anyone who's also watching us can just imagine what if we can any app on your phone, like Google Maps or Facebook or any app you're using every day, will have some sort of a safety plug-in, when they have a maybe small button somewhere in the corner, when it can be like a panic button, or some sort of emergency chat when you can have your emergency contacts, right? So if we can imagine something like that in a situation of danger, right, in a situation of emergency. And talking about that, I wanted to share the project I've been working since I've been studying at the City University of New York. It's a emergency alert application. Emergency alert, yeah, and it's for schools and colleges that time, right, when I was doing the project. But now I want to take this project further and think for not only for schools and colleges, but also for personal use, or maybe use it as a plug-in for apps we use every day, or maybe it's for a workplace, or any other use, or when you're traveling, right? And can you see my screen? I'm just want to make sure I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is it's just a quick draft of approximate a path of a user in an emergency, right? When I did my research for this project, I had people telling me stories of having volcanic eruption in the University of Uruguay. And that time they didn't have any smartphones or anything like that, or a gas leak in school in India. So it's all, any type of emergency can happen, right? And this is the inclusive circumstances that we need to think about. And this is just a draft of a user journey of a particular situation, right? And we just imagine it's a map of the school, the campuses, and the black arrow, it's the person, right, somewhere outside. And the person, so the question is, how might we help people during emergency situation to communicate more effectively and efficiently, instead of or in addition of calling 911, right? So 911 is always an option, but we can see other things. So, and the person who's on the map, right, saw an armed man, for example, going towards the library, and the person can call 911 and say he saw the armed man going in the library, something might happen, right? Or if they have this app in a school, for example, besides calling 911, they also can report. So they can report gun shooting, for example, and can be any emergency, medical, can be harassment, and it can be bullying, it can be abduction, or even maybe for the abuse, the domestic violence, right?
Mm.
It can be used in this sphere as well. And for example, it's gun shooting, and the person need to identify the location, and the ad working on the back of this. And meanwhile, like when you confirm, it goes to the admin, right? An admin work. And what else person can do to make sure, like for example, people in the library, they don't know what's going on. So but everyone in the school has this app, right? For example, then you can share, and the report like automatically generates to emergency chat with everyone in the chat from the school, including staff, including parents, for example, and it's automatically generated message when on the back end the admin is working on distributing to like police and other forces, right? So it's just a quick draft, right? And my question is, like, how can we maximize the use of this app in, like, it's inclusive circumstances, right? When this sort of emergency happens, people panic. Even people who has no disabilities, they will be not able of many things because it's a panic. People don't know, they cannot 100% concentrate. A lot of things can happen. So, and in these inclusive circumstances, I want to ask Christopher, but if anyone else can suggest in the chat, like any ideas, what else can be done in terms of maybe for a person who's blind or deaf, right? Or any other situation. Like, what do you think? What can we do?
Well, this is wonderful, Anna. In the first place, I want to say congratulations for coming up with such a wonderful idea. I think the first thing that I want to highlight is that with this application, there are so many possibilities. One of them is, for example, when you are creating a profile for your application, and people that identify as disabled, they can specify in their profile what kind of disability they have. And so, for example, if they have an emergency, if there is a fire in their building, and they report it, they click on report. When the report gets to, I don't know, the fire department knows that someone that is in that apartment, that is under fire, that is, you know, in this dangerous situation, that person is visually impaired. So there is a different sense of urgency, right? Because it is different when you're sighted and you are able to evacuate the building, for example, versus when you are visually impaired and you don't have your sight to be able to evacuate at the same pace as someone that is sighted. It's wonderful in that sense because when you create your own profile in your application, you can describe yourself based on your identities, right? You can be a woman, you can be transgender, you can be a disabled person, and that totally changes the way people perceive the emergency, right? Now, let me talk about a personal experience that happened a couple of weeks ago. And we all need to understand and acknowledge that we are still living in the Trump times, okay? And we are living in the US after the Trump administration, but we're still living under a lot of that chaos, a lot of those, you know, the many consequences that we lived in the US under the Trump administration. And I'm talking about racism, ableism, harassment, and all of these horrible things that happened during the Trump administration that we continue to live. Black, indigenous, people of color, disabled people, transgender people live under a constant harassment everywhere in the US. And this is an excellent idea for people to report a harassment incident, for example. A couple of weeks ago, I was physically attacked by a white person. I was physically attacked by a white person. And the white person, not only happy after attacking me physically, she called the police and she wanted the police to arrest me. We need to understand that I am under a conditional visa. So if I get arrested, I can get deported the next day. So I am visually impaired. I'm not aware of everything that is happening around me. I am being attacked by a white person. I hear people next to me, and things are happening really. Something like this application would have been very useful for me in that moment, because I can report the attack. People know that I'm visually impaired.
You can prove.
I can prove it. When the police came, the first thing they wanted to do was arresting me. They didn't even ask me what was happening, right? So the other neighbors, the other people walking on the street that saw everything has happened, they stopped and they said, no, police officers, this woman is out of control. She was attacking him. She was calling him, she was cursing.
Yeah.
It was a hate crime, basically, because of my sexuality and my heritage as well. So I'm just thinking, all of these attacks that we see on people of color, Black, Indigenous people of color every day, how useful this application can be. And especially for those that are disabled, that are experiencing intersectional oppression. So this is a wonderful tool, right? This is a wonderful tool for someone to report an attack, looking for support, looking to feel safe, and the possibilities are endless, because the application can be connected to other groups, for example, Black Lives Matter, for example. So when you report, the Black Lives Matter get a report as well, and they know that there is a Black person being attacked, and that they need support, right? Because one of the things that that you have to do under these circumstances is that you get the support of the community before the police violence takes place, right?
Yes.
Especially for people of color, we all know what happens when white people call the police on Black, Indigenous, or people.
Yes.
So
I'm so sorry
in that time, right? So I think the possibilities here are just endless. I know this is your first draft, but I'm so happy you for coming up with such a wonderful idea. That I know many communities, transgender communities, women communities, feminists, people of color, disabled people will appreciate something like this.
Thank you. Yes, it was part of the study also, but I just wanted to take it further, and I actually joined this entrepreneurship program to make sure I have the sources and help to basically make this application live, and where else I can put it, right, to be more useful, not just for schools and colleges, but be more like useful. And I'm so sorry what happened to you, but definitely. And talking about the profile, it has the profile. I didn't do the draft for that yet, but that's a great idea to add with everything you said. And also talking about all this emergency situation that happening. You also mentioned, like last time when we spoke about, it also will be like really helpful to navigate maybe in some sort of emergency when that person cannot talk, or maybe it's like a low lighting or low vision, and a lot of things basically can be done. And this is just an idea, and so I welcome your suggestions. And yes, thank you so much for reviewing that. And as a tool, as a inclusive circumstances, I think it might be useful. It should be useful.
Absolutely. I think the possibilities are endless, and we are finally getting to a point as a society, as humans, we are getting to the point that we recognize that differences in your identities can have an impact on the way we live through emergency situations like this. For example, an attack, a fire, a medical emergency, access to useful resources in these moments they really make a difference in people's lives, right?
Thank you so much for your support and for your feedback. And I just wanted to also show a quick example of National Domestic Violence Hotline, right? Talking about inclusive circumstances, right? When the person in a situation of domestic violence. And this is example. I just really like that it's like a small thing, right? That it's on this right corner, this exit little square, which it's such a small thing, but it means a lot, because basically what it does, if you in some sort of emergency in terms of like domestic violence, and you research and resources, and the abuser might be watching you or coming at that moment to you, so that's the button when you can click and the exit website right away, and it takes you back to Google search, right, which they basically cannot follow, right? So I'm just talking about like small situational differences and things that be done in terms of safety, in terms of inclusive like circumstances, right? So definitely, I mean, probably a lot more can be done, and it's a lot of like brains involved, especially like in sustainability pertaining safety. But like small things like that, I feel it's definitely important to discuss and see the solutions, because it's for people who has been like traditionally excluded, and technology now is helping to solve like more and more problems for people. So, and when we talk about that, I remember Chris wanted to also share one example, right, of like inclusive circumstances. You told me that it's like application. I will share the screen in a second. The application that you said, for example, the blind person lost, right? So this is the circumstances, blind person lost. And now I will share the screen, and the Christopher will explain you this application. It's not sharing. It's weird. One sec. It doesn't show. I shared. And now?
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Is this Be My Eyes? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Be My Eyes.
Okay. So this is for the community out there, the web designers, the UX designers. This is a wonderful, wonderful application that I absolutely love. When Anna invited me to take part in this conversation, this was the first application that came to my mind. It is called Be My Eyes. And the reason that I love it is because it's a combination between technology and human generosity. Again, accessibility comes from the heart. We must be generous when we approach accessibility, because we're talking about humans. Disabled people are humans. We are humans. And Be My Eyes is basically an application. You call a number. There is a button that you click and you call the number. And there is someone on the other side of the line that is a sighted person. So Be My Eyes is for blind people or low vision people. And for example, if they are in a situation of emergency, or if they are shopping, for example, and they want to know what size the shirt they have in their hands or in front of them is, when they want to know information that they cannot access because they're blind or low vision, they call this line, and somebody on the other line, on the other side of the line, I'm sorry, is going to use your phone camera, and they're going to be your eyes. So they're going to be the person like a guidance. They're going to verbally describe anything that you need, and they are going to help you resolve your problem. So, for example, Anna's example is a perfect example. If you are blind and you're lost, you are lost in New York City, you're a tourist, you are completely lost in Times Square. You call this line, Be My Eyes, and somebody on the other line is going to look through your phone camera, and they're going to tell you, yes, you are on 42nd and 7th Avenue. You need to walk in this direction or that direction to take the train, or, you know, basically just providing guidance. Let's say, for example, that I need to get a present for my mom, and I need to get I don't know, something in pink, something that is pink, maybe a t-shirt, maybe a necklace, maybe a hat. They can call this line and they can say, hey, do you see something pink from my mom in this store, in this specific store? And the person on the other line, the sighted person, is going to describe everything that is around that person and is going to say, pink hat, or there is a pink shirt in that specific area of the store. So Be My Eyes has become a very useful tool for blind people everywhere in the US. And this is a fantastic example of combination between technology and humans. The reason that I say combination technology and humans, I know that all technology comes from humans. But for example, if you had the opportunity before to hear a screen reader, the screen readers basically have a robot voice, reading everything, reading the documents or anything that you need to read. And the voice has just this very inhuman tone. You know what I mean? Like there is nothing like listening to a human voice. If you are blind and you need this, you need assistance, there is nothing like the human voice, because we are humans. We need to be connected to each other. And my problem sometimes, or the challenge with assistive technology, is that they have become too technological and there is no human behind it. So what I want people to understand is that any design, any contribution to accessibility, any application of the future needs to have a human component to it, because disabled people are humans and we need humans assistance, right?
Exactly.
And sometimes it can be as simple as having a phone number. So if you have a website, let's say, I don't know, eBay, I'm trying to purchase something on, and there is no way for me to find where can I click to purchase something on eBay, but there is a phone number on the bottom. I can call the phone number and talk to a human, another person that can help me navigate the website. That human contact is important. I know that we are living in technological moments, but we need to be humans when we approach accessible design.
Exactly. And
so this is the application that I wanted to share, because I love it. I have used it in the past. Friends of mine have used it. And it's a wonderful example. It's accessible, it's free, and I love it. I love it because you never know who you get to talk to, and at the end of the conversation, you're making friends with that person. So it's wonderful because there is a lot of human connection.
Exactly. Like, let's make inclusivity more human. Let's humanize all the interaction and technology. Nothing can be better than a human connection, right? And I remember when I talked to you, when I spoke to you before, and then we were talking about different topics, and you also touch upon when you applying for different like art programs, and a lot of the applications are not accessible sometimes, and you had to call and ask them if they can take an application over the phone because it's not accessible.
Absolutely. But for example, as well, I make dances for blind people. Do you think it makes sense for me to have video footage or photography of my work when my work is decentering sight? It's obviously a conflict that I have in my practice. But when I apply for funding, when I apply for fellowships, for grants, for opportunities, people want to see video of my work. And I try to explain people that through video, they're not going to experience the same, because the touch, my work is about audio describing the movements, my work is about having people touch my costumes. Is tactile design, right? There is a lot of tactility in my work. How do you translate that to video, for example, or photography? So a lot of the accessibility design, again, is human, because if you are a funder, for example, if you're a nonprofit and you're funding different programs for artists, and you open the application, and let's say the application is accessible and everything is wonderful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then comes the review process. The review process of the application. None of the panelists, none of the people that are reviewing the applications are disabled people. So the people that are non-disabled are reviewing the work of disabled artists, and they don't understand that because it's not their language, right? It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's like white people reviewing the work of Black artists. There is a discrepancy because you need to understand the Black history, you need to understand the Black language, you need to understand the Black sensibility, Black community to understand the work. It's the same with disability in the arts. You need to understand the disability rights movement, you need to understand disability justice, and this is for all designers. You need to read a lot of books. You need to read everything that is happening out there with disability justice and what the community is doing. Remember that disabled people must be included in the process always. Otherwise, you're just designing for yourself. And if you're non-disabled, you are designing for yourself, thinking that you're doing something accessible when it's not really accessible. So always people, disabled people in the process is going to have a better, a most impactful result, right?
Yes, exactly. And since you touch upon that, and I wanted to kind of conclude the conversation because I want to leave some time for questions. I see a couple questions. And as you mentioned, yes, definitely, I want to talk about that, how people with different abilities, people with disabilities need to be included. We need to design with, we're not designing for. And it's very important because it starts from step one, right? It starts from brainstorming, it starts from research, and it's very important to always include. And to do the research, we need to do research and recruiting for the research, recruiting participants more inclusive, right? We need to think through our questions. The questions can be like to screen some people that we need to keep in mind, and some people don't think of themselves as disabled, even though maybe they have some disability, right? And the question can be like, what would you describe yourself as a person with disability, right? And you can ask, you need to be more like, you need to have some like etiquette of talking, right? And a lot of things, a lot of rules, and obviously people with disabilities need to be included in the process, and make sure that their disability is relevant to your research, and like it matters like what you are testing, and before even testing, for in general for the research, right? And I wanted to quote Alice Roy, and she's very inspiring leader, and she said that when we design for disability, we all benefit. And I agree 100%. So when we design with people with disabilities or traditionally excluded people in mind, at the end everyone benefit. We know all the examples of things or technology, like for example the text messaging, right? It was created initially for deaf people, and now everyone using it, right? So everyone is involved, everyone needs to be involved at all points, and everyone is like including everyone, the technology will like, it will be beneficial. And I just want to say that her idea of Alice Roy, that she said that like, what if we change our mindset? What if we started designing for disability first, not for the norm? So we're not designing for norm, we're designing for disability first. And I couldn't agree more. I think it's just amazing thought, and it should be definitely included. And so as you see, when we design for disability first, we like often stumble for like solutions, that are not only like inclusive, but like better. Like it's better than when we design for the norm. It's just like a rule of life, you know. It just happens, and we can do that. I truly believe in that, and I want to say what I learned from Alice Roy, that let people with disabilities help us. Let people help us to solve some of the greatest problems. Isn't it amazing idea?
It is amazing. And I always tell people this example. Imagine that you live in a building. Imagine that there is someone on the 6th floor that is a wheelchair user and is asking for an elevator in the building. The building doesn't have an elevator, and the only person that is requesting the elevator is the wheelchair user. The management of the building gets the elevator for the person in a wheelchair. But what happens with the rest of the people in the building? They're going to start using the elevator, right? And life is going to be easier for everybody. So something that is initially just for someone in a wheelchair eventually will become usable for everybody, and everybody will benefit. So I love your quote, because it encompasses everything very beautifully. When you design for accessibility, you design for everybody. Accessible doesn't mean just for disabled people. Accessible means for everybody. Everybody. And that requires a lot of time and conversations and dialogue. And I know the process takes longer, and I know that we're all working behind time, and we understand all that. But something that we need to understand about accessibility is that accessibility really struggles with capitalism, right? Because capitalism is everything but accessible. Capitalism is discriminatory. Capitalism wants people to work faster. Capitalism wants, so accessibility, all of this culture that we have, that we need to do something fast, that we need to create everything new every day, that we need to go faster and faster and faster and faster. And accessibility really asks people to stop, think about the process, sit down, meditate, dialogue, and talk about it.
No, definitely. That's what also I learned, that people with different abilities can experience the world in a very unique way. And those unique experiences, what people with disabilities have, it's what's going to help us make and design better solutions. So I definitely it's just 5 minutes left, and I see a couple of questions I want to attend. So I want to finish with the talk, with the agenda. Basically, we learned a lot. We went through the app and through different solutions, different ideas, and we review some of the Be My Eyes and other great ideas. Thank you so much, Christopher, for sharing your story. And I see one question here is actually for Christopher. Oh, it's actually a few more questions now. Okay. So the first one I saw, it was, Christopher, you have overcome so many hurdles beautifully. What are some ways you educate people on the intersections of accessibility?
Just a very holistic approach. I never tell people what they need to do to make a space accessible. I walk the people through the space and ask them to experience the space and discover what is it about the space that is not accessible. In other words, I'm asking people to put themselves in someone else's shoes. I'm asking people to understand their experience from a different perspective. I'm asking white people, for example, to use their privilege to help others that are always marginalized or discriminated. So basically just speaking to communities differently, because you have to recognize that we are different. And as well, we live in a moment that is with so much political correctness that people are so afraid of asking questions. You need to ask questions. I had an argument a couple of days ago with someone that identifies as D-deaf, because we were talking about the term hearing impaired. and this person was telling me that is no longer correct to use the term, and another friend tells me that it's totally fine to use the term. So we are always in these conversations. I am visually impaired, but I was having an argument with someone from the D-Deaf community. So we need to ask the questions, and it triggers emotions because we are humans and we are emotional, and this is a very difficult topic. But we need to talk about race, we need to talk about disability, we need to know from their own experiences. That's the best way to approach the work.
Thank you so much. And next question, how can people upgrade their existing application to be even more inclusive? I can say a few words on that as well. So definitely, if the application already exists, you need to do still testing, and you need to still recruit people with disabilities to make sure. And when the application in the process, the prototype needs to be accessible as well. Obviously, try to implement like screen reader or any other accessibility tools when you create the application. It's very important to do it on the early stages, but if the application already exists, you can still do it by testing and recruit people with different abilities for your tests. And so let me think, and if Chris, you have anything to add to this question.
I just want to say for all the designers out there that you have to be gentle to yourselves as well. It's impossible to design someone that is accessible for everybody right now. We're not in that cultural, technological moment, not yet, right? So if you are designing an application, maybe you want to choose to make it accessible just for visual impairment and just focus on visual impairment. And then when you complete that design, you can focus on the D-Deaf community. Don't try to make something accessible for everybody because you are going to become very anxious. It's not possible right now. It's good to try. It's good that you are trying and you have ideas, but just take one step at a time, one community at a time.
Yeah, definitely. You also mentioned that we can use it, we can test it first, for example, with like visual impairments, blindness, then we can test separately, right? Like one step at a time, like with different disability at a time, basically.
Yes.
And yes, and also remember that the simple design, the better. The simpler design, the better, right?
Yeah,
Simple
simplicity, yes.
And next question, how do reach out to diversely enabled people when asking for feedback on technology projects?
There are many organizations, but I guess it depends on the community that you are. What is your market? For example, are you making an application for artists? Are you making an application for administrators? Are you making an application for fashion designers? Once that you determine the market, then you can do some research because there are disabled people doing everything right now. There are fashion designers that are disabled. There are artists that are disabled. You can reach out to the community, do a little research, and then just send an email and be very honest about it. Hey, I designed this application, but I'm a little lost. I need some feedback. Is there someone in the community that can help me? Be honest. Disabled people really appreciate honesty. When people reach out to me and ask me, I really appreciate when people come from an honest place, right?
Thank you so much for sharing. And also I see in the chat that I know Robin from NYU CNIE. It's a collaborative for new immigrants. It's we supporting refugees and asylees, and so, and we together on the board, and she's our director basically. So, and she also had a question in the chat, how can we highlight, thank you so much for coming, Robin, by the way. How can we highlight the positive changes that you've described in the workplace so that they are maintained moving forward?
Social justice is this is the question that we always ask in social justice issues, right? Because social justice is not a vertical. History is teaching us that we can lose all the rights that we earned, right? Through activism, through protests, through disability rights movement to women's rights movement to, and something that we need to learn is that whatever we accomplish, when we accomplish something, we need to take care of that. We need to make sure that we preserve it, whether it is technology, whether it is a practice, whether it is whatever we accomplish as humans. When we accomplish something that is significant and helpful for everybody, we need to be very protective and take care of it, because now we're going back to the physical spaces and we might forget a lot of these technological and accessibility tools, right? But we need to be protected. We need to remember that it was very useful for people. So, it's very easy to lose your privilege, very easy. So how can you protect your privilege, right? Not just for you, but for others. So there has to be partnership is very important right here, right now. We need to be partners with people that identify as disabled, and we need to protect disabled people's rights, as partners, as allies, as people that, share the same space, as people that, are your family, your friends. We need to protect these rights, these accomplishments, moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So yes, let's just conclude that accessibility comes from the heart. Let's humanize the process. Let's be more human. Let's connect and make a more inclusive community, and just let's stay human and inclusive. And thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Mary, Irina, Abhijit, and obviously Christopher. Thank you so much. Thank you, Annie, for moderating, and Robin, David, and Dmitry also. And yeah, thank you everyone. And so yeah, thank you so much. Oh, also one more thing before you all go. I remember we discussed with Christopher what is the future, because the topic is the future, and we've been talking a lot about the future of safety, inclusive circumstances. And you also mentioned the future is collaboration, and you said future of collaboration is when designers not only collaborate with like engineers and product managers and everyone on the tech team, but collaborations in terms of people who does desks, right? Tables, chairs, lighting. So collaboration is very, very important. And thank you, Christopher, so much. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Go across your discipline. Get out of the comfort zone. Know someone that is totally different from you, and you're going to learn so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Christopher and Anna. This has been an amazing conversation listening on. I have so many ideas now. So inspired. Love it. So yeah, thank you everyone for attending. We hope that you've learned and enjoyed this session, and feel free to continue the conversation in our Slack channel. Alrighty. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. So it's after party also. After party will be happening, I think, in Zoom. So you can check it in reception, I think, area, or sessions somewhere there. And we can also all talk and connect more virtually in person. If anyone wants to join. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, Anna. This was wonderful. Thank you so much to everybody. I'm a little tired because I'm having a full day of activities. But this has been very, very wonderful. Thank you, Anna, for the invitation. And after party.
Yes.
So much. And see you next time. And I'll talk to you soon, Anna.
Yeah, we'll talk soon, very soon. But thank you, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.